Hi, everyone. Welcome to Leftovers. I'm Granny Lisa, and tonight I have my co hosts, Becky, the Canadian Bacon, and her son, Andrew, Bacon Bit. And we've had a little bit of a break. We missed December, so we apologize for that. But tonight we have some great information that we're going to go with. And our title of the show is Red Light, Green Light. And I don't know, did you guys ever play that as a kid?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. To me, it was a lot of fun. And, you know, it was how fast you could go, right?
Mhm.
And you always slid to a stop because it got you closer.
Unless you're my kids who their father taught them that yellow light means go faster.
Well, I never even had yellow light. Hey, Brian, welcome
Hi,
to the
Brian.
show. Thank you for
Well, is
being
he
here.
wrong?
Oh, don't start with that. My mom just about had a fit when the kids said that.
Oh, no, no, no. We did not do that. We did not even have yellow. It was strictly red or green.
Yeah.
That was our old school, but I am the oldest one here, so, you know,
Not by
maybe.
much, trust me. Not by much.
Oh, thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. Well, in case anybody knows, yes, I did fracture my back. Yes, I am home and I am on the mend, and I'm glad to be here. And so we had some great info that we wanted to share tonight on this red light, green light. And that's basically when you are grieving and lost a loved one to suicide, which is what we are doing this about, is during the holidays, it can be really, really hard. My personal story is that my husband committed suicide. He's a veteran um, on the 29th of December. Now, Becky, your husband, he committed suicide on December what?
13th. He did it 13th, and we found him on the 14th. But
That's right.
I'm going to give you a new verbiage.
Ooh, what's that?
And the new verbiage is this: instead of saying committed suicide, say death by suicide.
Ooh,
It's a new one. It takes practice. And that was part of what the American Federation of Suicide Prevention was telling us on the 18th of November when I went to that countrywide thing, but it was here in Atlanta. And
mhm.
they said, instead of saying committed suicide, because you commit a crime, and they said death by suicide or passed away by suicide, because you don't say someone committed cancer. And I went,
No.
oh, brilliant. So yeah, so just to kind of give you like a different verbiage, yes. So my husband died from suicide or death by suicide on December 13th, and Andrew found him on the 14th at the entrance of our community, our new
Correct.
community that we've moved into.
Death by suicide. Am I saying that
It's
right?
yeah,
Death by
death by
suicide.
suicide. Just instead of using the word committed,
Yeah.
find another way. Like if it was, a heart attack or
Right.
something that was, because those are just as shocking.
Right.
It's just a heart attack isn't a choice and cancer isn't a choice.
No.
But the way that our spouses did this, it was death by suicide.
And it was a choice.
It was a choice.
You
Yes.
know, so most definitely.
Yeah.
But I think the hardest thing is that I'm, with the two of us, but I'm sure that there's other people, any
Mm-hmm.
kind of holiday. I mean, it doesn't matter to me.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that's a celebration, birthdays, anniversaries, anything that would bring families together that would that person would be a part of
Mm-hmm.
is not there. And so it's a whole mental building yourself up. I know that this year you did not celebrate Christmas because this is the first year.
Yep.
I did, and I actually had my family with my grandkids. So that made a huge, huge difference. But the after part of coming down from the holidays is it's hard. It hits
Mhm.
me, because, um, I think about what, he's missed, what I missed. It's the whole loss thing comes back at you, and
Mhm.
I don't I think that, people already have that, "Oh, Christmas letdown."
Mhm.
So, it's kind of like you go, 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 and then you stop, and then when people ask you questions when you're trying to go, you stop, and it's just this huge battle, and I don't particularly have any answers on how to combat it. I just know that it's a big issue.
We had there's a woman in our church, and her husband passed away a few years ago, and she always kind of sits behind me. And she asked me one day, probably right after before Thanksgiving, what we were doing for the holidays, and I said nothing. And she kind of looked at me. She's like, "Really?" And I said, "I'm not celebrating this year. I mean, last year technically was the first year, but we buried my husband on the 22nd. So the 25th to us of December was complete. I was numb. I barely remember it.
Was
So
just a blur for us.
yeah. So this really was the first year of holidays for us.
Mhm.
We had Thanksgiving, we had his death, we had his funeral, Christmas, and then New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So within, a 5-week window, we had a lot of things that were emotionally draining and happening in our
Exactly.
lives. And so I had explained this to this woman, and she's like, "Well, I just don't agree with you on this one." She says, "I understand it. I just don't agree with it." And I had a couple other people say, "Well, it's Jesus's birthday, and you need to celebrate him." You know what? Until you've been through exactly what we've been through, there's no one that understands. I needed to stop. I needed that red light to stop and go, "I
Mhm.
can't do this." Because I had a hard time driving through my neighborhood because everybody had Christmas lights up.
Mhm.
Christmas is my favorite holiday
Mine
by
too.
far because in Canada we get an extra day. You guys get it here in Thanksgiving. We got Boxing Day. We get another day off.
Ah.
But I didn't partake in it. I did buy the kids. I was buying the kids stuff like I normally would for Christmas
Mhm.
here and there and just giving it to them like, "Hey, this is a Christmas present. This is that." But no tree. We went to our pastor's house for his Christmas celebration. We were invited over there. And apparently, Andrew informed me that the associate pastor and the pastor were having discussions as to who got custody of us.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like they were fighting over who got custody. I'm like, okay, I didn't know I was in a divorced family. So, but it was nice to know that gave us the green light to at least enjoy ourselves
Right.
and do something fun. But in this home right now, it wasn't going to happen. And I told the kids last year, I will never put a Christmas tree up or Christmas decorations up in this house again, ever. They stayed in the
Right.
garage. They're packed up. They didn't get unpacked at all.
And both me and Kyle have agreed to that. We don't really care.
Now,
So,
how does it when your mom she pretty much took charge of that she put the red light up. Um, that to me was like a little protection edge around you guys so that you didn't have to make any kind of decisions on that and you just had to deal with whatever emotions that you were having during that time period.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
were you able to do that or was it still just a way to just kind of skim over it? How did you deal with the oncoming, holiday?
The way I dealt with it was with prayer, if anything.
Mhm.
I still celebrated Christmas, sort of. So we did do, or I did do, celebration of Jesus's birth. However, I would do it on my own rather than just at the church, just full on praise like that.
Right. Right. And I think that's the educational part. Um, I think that was really actually, I mean, I'm sure the person that said that to you is very sweet, kind-hearted,
Mhm.
but that was very rude
Oh
for her
yeah,
to
she
say
said
that
it twice.
I disagree with you.
Yeah, she
I
was
mean,
going to make me a
that's
Christmas tree.
see, that's the thing is that why do people think that they have to push their agenda on people that are grieving? Like oh, well, you should be over this by now.
Hmm.
Oh, you should be dating by now. Why aren't you, out doing things?
People have an
Um,
issue with empathy. That's the thing.
it's crazy, isn't it?
Hmm.
Hmm.
That they feel like they can say something when it comes to grief, which is a very personal subject.
But the
But
other thing though too is death by suicide has a different level of grief
mhm,
that nobody understands. Even, people
Hmm.
say, well, losing a dog is like losing a spouse or a family member. Oh, it just breaks their heart. That's one thing. And
Work
I will
left.
give him that. I've
mhm.
got animals. It breaks my heart. But those situations tend not to be a choice.
No,
And that is the number one thing. So with what the three of us and our families have dealt with is that person made a decision, a conscious decision that didn't have any involvement with us. We had no say in it
right,
whatsoever. So we have to live and move forward with what we're having to go with. And if it means for me that I can't do Christmas right now, so be it. I can't do Christmas. Do I want to do Christmas lights right now? No, I don't. But my next year, my next year is going to look completely different because I've got a whole new situation going on. So that is going to allow me to have a fresh start to move on and kind of grow there. But am I not going to grieve? No, I'm still going to grieve because I didn't
correct.
have a choice.
And that's the thing is that, we didn't have a choice in the matter.
Mhm.
So when people come up and say these awful things that they feel that they have a right to do,
Mhm.
which they don't, okay?
Mhm.
It's the worst thing you can say to somebody that is grieving, especially when it comes to suicide,
Mhm.
is that they should be doing this, they should be doing that. Unless you are a certified professional, you don't
Mhm.
say anything, okay? You
Hmm.
just keep your little mouth shut and you try to be
Understanding and
proactive,
be there.
just be there. And do not push the conversation.
Mhm. We
Wouldn't you
have
agree?
Yeah, we have a friend from our old town, and their youngest daughter was actually in Andrew's class when he was in preschool, and on I was obviously not on Facebook because I got off social media, and I logged in one day. I had to do something on there, and I saw that her husband had died on December 3rd, and it wasn't until I came back in January that I discovered that he died from suicide as well. So this family is now reeling from all of this stuff, and the only thing I did, and this is personal, not personal to me, but this is how I kind of feel about it, is I reached out to her. I sent her a message. I said, look, I went through it at the holidays. Hers was, I was December 13th, she's December 3rd, but it's still the same month. um I reached out to her. I said, without knowing how he had passed, I just said, if you ever need to talk, here is my number.
Mhm.
Now, whether or not she reaches out to me, because I don't want to be pushy. That was the thing. When my husband died, I spent 12 hours a day, phone calls, text messages, messages on Facebook, because I just, from 9 to 9, that's all that happened. I
Mhm.
had to live in it every hour for someone else.
Mhm.
And I didn't get to kind of have my time. And because I am a people pleaser, and for all of you who do not know, I just recently got engaged. But as my fiance likes to say, he's like, you're a people person, you're a people pleaser, customer service, that's your thing. So I couldn't let those phone calls go.
Right.
And sometimes you have to. I gave my Facebook to someone else and said, "You're in charge of it. I can't.
Right.
I'll
Yeah.
log in and I'll look, but I can't." So that was a green light. Like I gave it to someone else, or a red light. I said, "Here, take it."
Right.
My red light at the holidays was we didn't celebrate the holidays, and I logged off of Facebook for 2 months. I got off in November. I did not come back on until January because I couldn't see everyone else is happy. And that's the easiest way I could do. I could not see, Lisa, if you guys were posting pictures of your family, I was not going to bring your wow down, but I
Mhm.
was going to take care of me, and that meant not being on social media.
Right. Now we have
So
a Facebook user here. It says, "I attempted one time almost 20 years ago. I am so glad that you were not successful. I
thank you.
learned what I had in life after I did." That is so good. I am glad that you
Mm.
shared that. That's not something easy to talk about,
Mm-mm.
but I believe that it does need to be talked about
Mm-hmm.
more, which is
Yes.
why, Facebook user, we are doing this series, is that we are having open, frank discussions on the leftover stuff that family and friends have to deal with once their loved one is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just like emotionally, it's financially, it's the entire life is changed. And in suicide is already what deemed a um almost like a horrible illness. You know what I mean? Oh, your husband killed
It's a
himself?
stigma.
Yeah. And so they're like, "What's wrong with
Oh,
you?" You know, and that
oh, what did you do?
why weren't you a good wife? Why weren't,
Mm-hmm.
didn't you guys have a good marriage? You guys should have, done this and done that.
Mm-hmm.
And he said here, epidemic. Yeah,
It's an epidemic, yes.
yes.
It is.
And so it's just, it's something that needs to be verbally spoken about and shared. And so thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
appreciate that. And I
But
am
do me a
so
favor,
glad it didn't work.
do me a favor, Facebook user one, is talk about it.
Mhm.
Yes.
Talk about it to other people, because I promise you that when I go into a doctor's office, I will tell them that's my history. And not even a lie. On Wednesday, I went and I did like a triage thing because I'm having surgery on the 24th. And I looked at the woman who was doing it, and she's like, "Oh, your emergency contact." He died. And she went, "Oh," I said, "He decided he didn't want to be here anymore." "Oh, well, he didn't. God took," and I went, "No, he did. Oh, he decided." I said, "Yes, he decided that he did not want to be here anymore." And she goes, "I thought you were kidding." Good. I'm glad, Facebook user. I'm so
Yes.
glad.
Thank
But
you. Mhm.
I tell people, I'm like, I tell everybody, because I need them to know how to treat me. And I'm
Mhm.
telling them how to treat me. I'm telling them how to treat my family, because I have to make sure that my kids are protected. My children might not say anything to somebody, but mom will.
Mama bear come out.
And I'm vicious. I mean, I'm not vicious as in, but I'm like, I'm going to take care of my kids. So that's the whole thing, is that I make sure that I point it out to people so that you know how to react, and to walk a fine line with us at times too. I'm
Mhm.
giving someone else their red light, green light as well. You do
Exactly.
not have a red light to tell me, or a green light to tell me, "Oh, well, he didn't choose this." Yeah, he did.
Okay, Brad, I'm glad that you let me know because I was kinda, like, going, "Who is this person?" But but that's just me because 'cause I'm a nosy granny.
Oh, yeah, but that's because just Facebook user, it's kinda
Mhm.
vague.
Yeah, but I understand. It's hard to, unless you're part of the steam yard and give permission and all this other stuff,
Yeah.
it won't let you do things, but anyway, yeah. So, alright, now you were talking about putting up your boundaries for people that what they can and can't say to you
Hmm.
and your children. what would you recommend for somebody that just had their loved one take their life
Mhm.
and they are in the very beginnings of they can't even think straight and they are being bombarded, I at least was, with questions. I mean, I would never even dare ask some of the questions like, how did they do it? Did you find him? What did you see? What was it like? I mean, just
Mm.
horrible things that why would you want to know?
So,
So, how would you put up the red light on that without coming completely undone?
so at the very beginning, I was brutally honest. I mean, I'm very honest as it is, but I
Mhm,
was brutally honest.
Yeah, she was.
And but I would tell people that my husband took his life and my 16-year-old son found him and my Boy Scout son took his pulse. So then they realize that's exactly it, Brad.
mhm,
Curiosity does kill the cat. It immediately tells them that I didn't find him, that my son did.
mhm,
And only one person in my family, my immediate family, saw my husband. Um, and so at that point, I basically I cut the whole thing off at that because I've answered your questions before you even asked them.
mhm.
Because I didn't see. And well, where were you? Well, I drove down to his office to go see if I could find him because we couldn't find him. We didn't know where he was, even
Yeah.
though his GPS said where he was. I just didn't believe it. So I I very quickly did that. But what I did is I found the confidant. I found my niche of people that I need you to do this. So after we've found my husband, coroner takes them, they do their stuff, paperwork is finished. Exactly. Sharing is caring. But after we've, done everything, we come back to the house. There's the associate pastor and his wife.
Mhm,
There's one of the other church members that Andrew had called. And then there's my husband's best friend and his wife, who are dear friends of mine. And I looked at everybody in this house and I said, first and foremost, I will get remarried. I didn't make this decision. It wasn't my choice. I will get remarried. I told the kids that from day one. So no one can say, well, you've only been a year. Okay, you know what? I had made that decision as soon as my husband decided that he wasn't going to be here anymore and part of my life. I'm making mine. And I looked at every person in the room and I looked at couples and I went, you have Kyle, you have Andrew. And the associate pastor and his wife looked at each other and went, we have you. And I'm like, that's fine. Because I needed everybody to have someone to go to.
mhm.
And I told people, like, I can't take care of you. My father-in-law called me because, of course, my in-laws are in Oregon. They obviously want to come out for their son's funeral. But my father-in-law was having surgery on the 12th of January, so he couldn't fly because of his hip. My mother-in-law came out, but before she came out, I told my father-in-law point blank, I said, she is not allowed to come out here unless she is okay, because I can't take care of someone else. So I had to put my boundaries up right away. And I said, my concern is the kids and myself. If you can't handle being around us and expect us to take care of you, don't come near us. And I had to put a lot of those boundaries up. And then the people that were in my niche, my confidants, they took different tasks. Like the pastors at our church, which, dear God, that I'm leaving them, it breaks my heart because I am moving. But they ran with the funeral. His best friend ran with the ceremony at the military cemetery. Um, Everybody was kind of like I gave things to people because I couldn't do it.
I have a question before we get any further.
Mhm.
When you said that to your father-in-law concerning your mother-in-law,
Mhm.
when you say take care of her, what were you specifically meaning in that statement? Because family members, especially dysfunctional family members, they always put these roles out and use guilt trips and all these other little things. So when you said that statement, what was it exactly did you mean by her not taking care of her?
So when we got back to the house, well, when Andrew called and confirmed with me, I guess my older son called his grandfather, my
Mhm.
husband's dad. And so I had spoken with my mother-in-law as I'm driving the hour to get back to my kids, trying desperately to get back to them. And even when she would call throughout the day that day, people, because I put it on speakerphone, it's just easier to do it that way. And people could hear her going downhill, blaming herself. This is her fault. This is because mental illness runs in her family. And my husband had mental illness. And so she blamed herself. She said the words, if I hadn't have given birth to him, you wouldn't have fallen in love with him and he wouldn't have broken your heart. So statements like that, I couldn't take care of her for that because that's a
Right.
lot to put on me. I couldn't. So
Right.
when I'm saying to my father-in-law, she can't come out here unless you've got her into her therapist. She's on any medication that you can get her on, but she can't come out here if she's not mentally okay. I can't take care of her and the emotional state of my kids and myself. And at that rate, too, my dogs were going crazy. They were going after each other 3 and 4 times a week. I was at the ER for one of my dogs because she got bit so badly because it was such an upheaval in these four walls.
Oh, yeah, it is.
So
Emotionally, it's just exploding everywhere.
everywhere. So when I told him I can't have her come out here unless she is mentally okay to handle this because he wasn't coming with her. I couldn't have someone else that I had to babysit.
Exactly. So what happened?
She did come out after she saw her therapist. My husband, of course, he passed away on the 13th, 14th. And she came out on the 21st to the funeral on the 22nd. And she was here until January 9th because, of course, her husband had to have surgery. We had one blowout. We've never fought, ever. We had one blowout. And when my father-in-law finally came out in April, I had a very frank conversation with him because she's mentally not okay. He was a lot better off because not only that, he had about 4 months to kind of absorb everything, and they were in grief share together and they were doing all of that. So that helped. But I had a frank conversation with him because I did have the ability to have that conversation. So
Mhm.
he made a comment about, he's from the Vietnam era. He's like, well, there's a stigma. And I just looked at him point blank and I said, your statement right there just perpetuates the stigma and people don't talk about it. So that's why I talk about it. I said, and you and your wife tied my hands, wouldn't let me talk about it on Facebook, which is where I needed to say something. I needed to spread the word because it became my mission. That's, Lisa, why we do this, because this is part of my mission in life. Is I've already seen another friend have this happen
Right.
recently, and the only support I can give her is letting her know that I'm there. So I'm just trying to make sure that no one else has to be sitting in the shoes where we are. And people don't talk about it.
Exactly. Now, Facebook, Brad says here, I wrong for still hating myself for oh, there we go. Okay. Am I wrong for hating myself for the decision? I wanted myself to hurt in the worst way. I don't want to hurt now, but I still hate that choice I made. I tried to let my diabetes go south and kill me. To be honest, I wanted an open casket for my family. Um, okay, so are you wrong for still hating yourself for the decision of trying to kill yourself, or are you
Not going
wrong
through.
not going through? I'm a little, but you wanted to hurt yourself in the worst way, which, well, yeah, when you're going through that situation, I mean, I was suicidal at one point too in my life. And so I call it the pit. And when you get into the pit, it is a horrible, horrible place because you are not thinking correctly. It is everything is against you. I call it it's almost like being attacked by a strew of demons that just want to just take over and kill you. They will give you false stories on how this will be much better for your family. They don't love you. You don't, if you really cared about them, you wouldn't be hurting them anymore by your actions. I mean, it's just all of this compounding and pounding on you, and it doesn't, even in sleep, you don't get any kind of relief, because then you have it in your dreams, and some of those dreams will be like you get it done, and then how your family is so much more happier and at peace, and everything like that. And it's a horrible place. I mean, it's seriously, I think it is almost like a strew of demons just trying to kill you and just tear you down until they succeed. And I think that's where our loved ones had to be at, to the point that they would take their life. But no, I
Ultimately, it's
don't.
not really up to them. So I would say, don't hate yourself.
Right,
Rather hate the choice.
right, right. Because I don't think that, like you said, you don't want to, and you're glad that you didn't. But
We're glad you didn't too.
yeah,
Yes.
and and an open casket. Let me tell you about open caskets, okay? I did not have one for Terry because, well, his head was blown in.
Same with us.
So, couldn't do that. But if he wasn't, I don't want people to know what he looked like. I don't want him to be, like people going up and seeing him. And I know some people are completely different on it. But when it comes to suicide, it's 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 just another thing thrown in your face.
If you
Just
ask me, I'd
yeah,
say the open casket just shows people that you're dead. Do you really want people to remember you dead? Or do you want to have people remember you when you are alive and happy?
right, and not in that situation. I mean, but I do see the fact of, doing it through your diabetes. you know,
We
but
are
I
too.
I
Mhm.
think that that's what the thing is that there's two sides to this. There's the side that the person is going through, which some of us don't know or understand. And then there's the side that we're left over with, unfortunately. And hopefully that will stop others from making that decision, because we're the other voices of saying, you destroyed this part of me. You have put our family in such horrible situation. My kids are not ever going to, Andrew, whatever you can fill in on that.
Graduation, Eagle, uh, getting married, first child, all of that stuff.
Yeah, they're not going to have their dad to be a part of that, and
And
that's
I'm not
not
going to
going to
have
be.
him for retirement. I'm not
No.
going to have that picturesque, and neither are you, Lisa. You're not going to have that picturesque,
Oh, I know.
relationship that you're going to sit on the front porch and drink coffee and rock in your rocking chairs. You're just not going to have that, or play with your grandchildren on Christmas, because those are
Nope.
gone.
That's been ripped right out of my hands, and I feel it every day. I feel it every day. I don't share it every day. That's the other thing too, is that it comes to a point where you almost feel like you can't share anymore, because if you do share, phew, when are you going to stop wallowing in the sorrow?
You're welcome, brother.
Andrew's a very special young man. Um, and he's about to start the beginning courses for the seminary at our church. and he doesn't want to leave Georgia. I'm moving out of state. He doesn't want to leave Georgia because he doesn't want to leave our church. So I think that Andrew's going to be a counselor, even though he's been through hell and back. And one thing that I did immediately when my husband passed is I was looking for counselors immediately. Like, it wasn't even a question.
Oh, yeah.
But you know, I don't wallow. And I say it like that because when people ask me about my husband, I tell them that I was the sun, the stars, and the moon set and rose around him in my world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was my everything. I moved to this country for this man. I mean, I'm from Canada, so I moved to the US for him.
Yeah.
So when he did this, I was madly in love with him and not knowing where to go, even though I made the statement, I will remarry. But it wasn't until Memorial Day when I watched, my husband left 8 videos. One to the kids, one to me, one to his parents. And then the ones prior to, he left all to me. So I watched the very first 3 he did, which were the week before, where he was like, okay, if anything ever happens to me, this, that, and the other thing. And so I realized at that point I wasn't in love with him anymore when I watched those 3 videos on Memorial Day. Like, he's not coming back. I can't keep wallowing in this, but I do talk. And my therapist has told me, she goes, I don't want you to shut up. She's a veteran. She goes, I don't want you to shut up. I want you to keep talking, because you're going to say something that someone is going to catch on to, and you're going to prevent this from happening, or you're going to give a family member some resources that they never thought that they would have. And the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention in Atlanta wants me to join their stuff because I'm a veteran's wife.
Exactly.
And the other piece too, and this is one thing that most people don't know, and I know, Lisa, we've talked about this before, is I didn't get any benefits. And my in-laws were very, very surprised by that. I did not get any VA benefits.
No, because he was National Guard.
No, my husband was Air Force.
I mean, what?
Of course, yeah.
He's separated.
Oh.
He had a 10% disability for hypertension.
Oh,
and I know this is going to sound very blunt, but putting a bullet in your head does not constitute hypertension. So therefore, I got nothing. I didn't even get the $300 from the military to bury him. Granted, the military, he is buried in the military cemetery, and he got, the gun salute and all, all of that. But I didn't get anything.
No.
I got his life insurance from his job. And even then, the moron in their HR says, well, if he committed suicide or if it was foul play, you won't get anything anyway. So the day after we find him, he tells me I'm going to be destitute. Which I kind of wanted to email him back or call him and go, you moron. You heartless moron. Just so you know, I did get paid out on the life insurance policy, and I got a check for almost X number of dollars. So you need to shut your mouth before you start. So I did get an opportunity to yell at least 2 people from that company.
Yeah.
But then
see,
there were
that's the thing. It's like, why would you say that to somebody that their loved one just took their life?
Well,
Why?
he didn't know. He did not know how my husband died, because I was not stupid enough to say, oh, well, he took his life. I just said, we don't know yet. We don't know how he died. Knowing full well how he died.
Right.
I wasn't going to say anything. It wasn't until I had death certificates that actually listed on there that I send it to another company. But if you have company benefits, and your family has to go through all of the paperwork to get that done. And if you didn't have your policy for at least 2 years, they're not getting anything.
No. Mm-mm.
And most people go, well, you don't get any life insurance if it's suicide. Well, actually you do. If it's after 2 years that they've had the policy, you will get paid out on it. But most people don't realize that. And of course, we had 3 or 4 policies, some were really tiny and some were bigger, but I did get checks and things like that. If I hadn't have gotten that, I would have lost the house.
Exactly.
I don't know where I would
be. Most people do.
Yeah.
Most people
Most
do.
women.
Yes. Because
most women are broke.
If you try to go on to, let's say, welfare, I don't know what it's called nowadays, but, get food stamps, help, they go by the past month income.
They actually, and I had to file my husband's taxes for 22 in
Mhm.
23. The only this is, and I know this is going to sound weird, the only benefit that a widow gets or a widower gets is for 2 years they get to file their taxes joint off of one income. But the first year, after, like if your spouse passes away in 2023, you still have to file taxes like they're still alive. It's just their income stopped. This year, you have to file taxes jointly with them. So I had to do that last year. This year, I am filing widow status, which is
Mhm.
essentially joint on my income. But if it weren't for the life insurance policies, I'd be done. If it weren't for Andrew's Social Security, I would be done.
Mhm.
You don't have someone to go to, of course. Oh, well, thank you. He actually, do you want to answer that question, Andrew?
I have quite a few people who represent a pseudo father figure, but I also have the person my mom is engaged to, David, as someone who is not exactly that. However, he's still very close and he makes an effort to actually have a relationship with me, which I respect that a lot.
He flew from Texas to Georgia so that Andrew could go to an OA event, which is Order of the Arrow through the Boy Scouts. And
Mhm.
David intentionally didn't tell Andrew, but he gave Andrew his sash at the ceremony. So he put the sash on him. So he has stepped up and done a lot of things that, to be a dad. But we have, oh, that's awesome. I have one
Great.
eagle. I'm about to have two, and Andrew doesn't have a choice.
I
Right,
mean,
Andrew?
yeah, I'm doing my project literally tomorrow.
Tomorrow
Oh, cool.
morning.
Tomorrow morning. Yay.
So, but that's those are big things for us. Is I wanted to make sure that Andrew had you know, men in his life that he could go to because I'm here by myself. I
Mhm.
moved to this country alone. My family's all in Canada. And so our church, those the men in our church stepped up in a way that I have never seen before. I was so impressed. And then friends of ours, like that's the one thing that I always said this at the very beginning, and like tears running down my face. And I'm like, first of all, make sure your spouse knows everything about everything going on in your life, every bank account, every passport, everything.
Oh, yeah.
How to run the security system in your house, how to
Oh,
turn
gosh.
off something.
Where's the
Because
water shut off?
and I'm pretty handy, but
Yeah.
like the smoke alarms went off. I couldn't figure out for 45 minutes how to get these stupid things to turn off. I just pulled them out of the ceiling and took the batteries out. So those are little things that I would end my like I would do videos on Facebook. That was how I communicated to people. And I would always say that, and then I would say just make sure that that your spouse knows what's going on, how to cut the grass, who to call for this, how to do this,
Mhm.
because you never know. And so I have had a lot of men in my life that have surrounded our family, and they've just kind of like arms around us to make sure that we're doing everything that we need to do. And that's been important. And making sure that the right people are in your corner to get you through this. Because bottom line is, and Lacey, you probably dealt with this too. You don't know, pardon my French, you don't know your ass from a hole in the ground because you can't function
Mm-mm.
today because you can't get out of yesterday.
Yep, that's true. It happens. It does. And that's where I really wanted to touch bases tonight was on, especially with the holidays, is that red light and green light, and how I like it how you've done it is that you've actually set your own boundaries, your own
Mm-hmm.
red lights. This isn't happening. This green light we can go with, and it's always changing. And
Mm-hmm.
so and it should be with whatever is going on with you. Now, when a person is having to go through that, and you have been blessed, because of, your family, church family, which
Mhm.
that's, to me, is like, that is family.
That
There's,
they are my family.
They are.
that's just
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
Um, I, on the other hand, did not have that. I had some friends that,
Mhm.
"Oh, if you need anything, my husband's available, blah, blah, blah,
You
blah,
got
blah."
2 weeks of that. That's all you get is about 2 weeks with those friends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because if you don't, or if you talk to the husband, so here's a little key here, girls, is, do not talk directly to a husband on something that you need. Like, if it's a repair or something, do not do that. Talk to the wife,
Mhm.
because that's going to be whether you're going to still have that person as a friend, or it's going to turn into they just don't talk to you anymore,
Mhm.
because that it doesn't happen that way. Um, with me, Brad, the military family, he was, out for so long, he didn't have that, connection with anybody. So,
Thing
no.
went with our situation.
We had one couple that was my husband's best friend that they worked together from the Air Force, and then as civilians, if one left one job, the other would follow. If the one, and it was just
Mhm.
kind of that domino effect. So that was the only reason. And I'm still very, very, very close with them. But they're the only ones.
Yeah. And so that's the only thing that I can say is that if you, um, definitely, and this is from people from church,
Hmm.
you do not deal with the man itself, you deal with the wife, and you're walking on really big eggshells
Hmm.
on that. And so I had to go through a lot of repairmen that would take advantage of you and rip you off, and it's horrible. It's a horrible thing to have to go through, and, but that's one of the leftovers that, and today's society is missing so much more, compassion.
Hmm.
Passion,
Humanity has
empathy,
no
accept.
compassion.
I had to be mean a lot of times, like not mean intentionally, but I had to kind of, and I call it my wild card. And I hate to have that wild card, but I literally would use it. Um, you know, okay, guys, my husband just killed himself. I need this done, and I need it done now. So that was a statement that I made more than one time
Mhm.
because I can't do this myself. I can't function. But I'm not telling them that. I'm telling them my husband just killed himself. I need this done before I have an entire house full of people at my house.
I mean, you did that with the stupid real estate agent at our
Oh,
yeah,
our neighborhood is still being developed, so we still have the model home and the real estate agents. And of course, we're still at the location where my husband is, his body is. And she drives in and she's like, so in her car, what happened? And I looked at her straight in the eye and I went, my husband decided to put a bullet in his head and he's over there. Oh, is there anything we can do? I went, yeah, you can get the builder and the foreman to come over to my house and do the 1 year inspection that they were supposed to do and actually finish everything so I could get the hell out of this neighborhood. And that's all I said to her. And she was like, because my filter was gone.
Mhm, mhm.
And here's the other thing. I think that when your filter goes, and like you said, you go to the wife instead of the husband. I think when your filter goes, you find out who your true friends are
Exactly.
because they're the ones who are going to be able to understand that you're losing your shit because you can't handle it.
Mhm.
You've lost everything that you knew to be normal. You just have to.
Right.
I can't take it out on the kids. I can't take it out on my animals. I can't take it out on me because if I do that, then the kids have no one. So sorry, the person on the other end of the phone or whoever, just happened to
Oh,
ask me a question, you're going to get the blunt and it could be very rude answer.
Right, and I did have to do that once with, I had a repair done on, my double doors to my patio,
Mm-hmm.
and there was at the top of the door, you could see sunlight coming in, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, "This is not acceptable. Do you not
Mm-hmm.
see this?" And they're like, "But that's just the way it is." I'm like, "No, that is not the way it is. I did not have this before. Now I do." And they kept arguing with me that I needed to just accept it. And I lost it. I literally lost it. And I just went ahead and said, "You guys are fucking morons."
Mm-hmm.
And I just started off because the F word is my word.
Word of the day.
Well, it's the only word that when I'm gone, that's all that comes out. And they got all upset because I was a woman. If it was my husband saying it to him, it wouldn't have been a big deal, but I was a woman
Mm-hmm.
standing up for myself on that. And they literally walked out. "Well, we're not going to take this from you." I'm like, "Okay, then don't take it. But you're going to hear from this not being taken care of,
Mm-hmm.
you
We
know?"
had we had and this I noticed it before my husband died, but it was a drip in the ceiling because our laundry room is on the second floor, and there was a drip in in the living room, and he was like, it must be from Andrew's toilet in his bathroom, so he fixed the seal around it, and so when he died, it got worse and worse because we were doing laundry. Come to find out that it was the dryer was backed up, the dryer vent. And so all the moisture was sitting underneath the dryer and then dripping through the floor. So, of course, I have the builder come out here because I have the 2-ton warranty. I've got all of these warranties through the yin yang. And they came and they took the cap off that little cage thing off the vent. It cleared up. They replaced my vinyl. They fixed my ceiling, everything. And I mean, if I had to be mean, I would be. But I was fortunate that the foreman that is in our community was really, really good, and he understood. But I also come in with a whole new. Why don't we have veterans that stand in for things like that? Not to take. I will say I did have a veteran, or I did have my husband's best friend who would come in. The only problem is he lives an hour away from us. So
Yeah.
that was a little bit tricky. And I didn't know who to reach out to for the vets.
I'm a vet, and I didn't know who to reach out to either.
Mm-hmm.
But you do have like the American Legion, but
Mm-hmm.
it's so hard to get people from the American Legion to actually come and help each other because most of them are so old that
Mm-hmm.
they can't, and the younger ones, um, they're
They're
not
dealing with
part
their
of
own
the
demons.
well, and they're not, part of those organizations that,
Mm-hmm.
built that to be what it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that's a good idea on it should be something that veterans, I mean, now I know about all these veteran groups online and everything and that I never even knew existed. So, but
But
that's
look at how
something.
this started. Look how this
Mhm,
podcast started. It started with, obviously, you had the idea, but it was me talking to Military Mike saying, "Hey,
mhm,
Military Mike is a friend of mine, so you know what my story is. You know that I have a big mouth. I mean, he's been calling me bacon for years.
mhm,
So uh, you know how that I will talk about this." And so that's when he got me in contact with you and a bunch of other people too. But you're the only one that has continued to, keep this whole thing going because Mike knew how important it was to me to keep it going. As for an app, it would be beautiful. But right now, this podcast is all we have because there's still so much that
mhm.
isn't out there. Yeah, there's
Right,
these societies that you don't hear about until you are deep inside of it. And that's when you hear about the American Federation or American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I
right.
never heard of it.
I never heard of it. No.
And it's across the country, but I
Yeah,
hadn't heard about it. So
yeah.
it's until it happens to you. Now, if I remember correctly, I know that if I, and obviously I could be wrong, but that this is going to also be part of Ooh, we might need to talk. But anyway, this might be this might be extended to other groups than just our little niche here,
Right.
extending it to bigger and better, not better groups, but bigger groups of people that need to hear this stuff.
I agree completely. And, this is our first step. This is our first doing it. In fact, I don't know. I'm sure there's probably other programs that are out there. I don't know if they're talking in depth about things as much as we do. And, the anger, the emotions, the sadness, even, sharing even some of the joys that we've found here and there. Um, but we are at, I don't know where we're at, 4 minutes now.
Got 4 minutes left.
But I wanted to, let's start with any kind of closing thoughts.
Andrew, you should start. You've been pretty quiet tonight.
Yeah.
So I'd say altogether, if you're contemplating suicide and you've also gotten through it, but you hate yourself for even having that thought in the first place, don't hate yourself, okay? That's a whole another downward spiral you don't want to be in.
Mm-hmm.
I would say just hate the decision, move on, pass it away like it's nothing. Because
Right.
it is literally nothing. It has no value in your life, and it does you nothing.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
want to do that, Lisa?
I had found this and it really hit me is saying, "Hey, I'm not ignoring you. I just don't have the energy to talk right now," is much healthier than just ignoring a message because like you said, you actually assigned people to take care of that. Um, that is one way that you can do that by letting the person know who's, maybe intentionally wanting to make sure you're okay is to say that and then keep that person in your prayers, keep that person close to reaching out again because did we share about the okay, we're going to go over a little bit, Peggy. We have a little bit of a person from another group had shared that at Christmas time they had reached out to a female veteran and she has a 16-year-old son. And so they were just reaching out and checking, doing a buddy check type thing on Christmas Eve and jibber jabbered and everything else. And another veteran from the same group just reached out and did the same thing. And then a few days later, they had gotten a message back from this female veteran stating how much she appreciated them just reaching out, that she was ready to commit suicide that night, even with her 16-year-old son being in the home, and that them just reaching out and talking to her. They didn't talk about suicide. They just talked and just did a well check and buddy check. That made a difference in a veteran staying alive, making it through that bump of being attacked, and has a new lease in wanting to stay alive and hopefully getting more help with counseling. But that's how important it is on staying in touch with people that that may have depression, that have been going through a hard time. Um, it doesn't matter if it's in your heart. It's been there. It's brought there. I believe from God, the Holy Spirit's bringing that attention to you. That person needs you at that moment. So if you can't get in touch with them, at least start praying for them. It only takes a quick moment. God doesn't need a 10-hour prayer. Just, Lord, be with that person with whatever they're going with. In Jesus' name, amen. He's got the rest of it, Um,
but even a text message to them just saying, hey, hi,
I love you.
Just thinking of you. I love you. Hope you're having a great day. You don't need a lot. Because that's the one thing that after someone passes away, everybody disappears and goes back to their regular lives.
They don't wanna think about you anymore.
No. And
Mm-mm.
so that's where just that quick little reach out can make a world of difference
World
because
difference.
it's just opening up that line of communication to say, hey, you
Yep,
need to talk. I'm here.
yep.
If you just got a text message from me, it means I'm available.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's
Mhm.
true. So,
So,
okay. Well, gang, I appreciate you all being here tonight. I know it's been a while. We're going to meet next month. It's going to be February. It'll be the second Friday of the month. And my mind is blank on what our subject matter is going to be,
I think it
but
was love. I think we were
love.
going to talk about love, just the family and everything like that because it is Valentine's Day area.
Yeah. Yeah. It is important to have love in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's not all about being,
Grieving.
yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, everybody, thank you so much for being here. Please like and subscribe. We do
And
have
share.
and share, and we do have
Please.
our website. What is it?
The Facebook, it's
The Facebook.
leftovers afterwards.
Thank you. So go there and you can talk with us and share things, and we would be great. That would be great. We'll talk.
Reach
We'll
out to
talk
us.
about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Reach
Yes.
out.
Okay. Oh, Peggy, take us away, girl.
Mwah.